All right, we are live. I'm Killian, also sometimes known as Low Luxury. And who are you?
Hi, friends. Welcome. My name's Christian, and that's Killian, and this is episode 0, Goose Egg, of the Bias Cut, our new fashion podcast. Killian, thank you so much for joining me, or rather inviting me, because you've been doing all the legwork, and I just kind of exist.
You're
But
like the I don't know, the brains. Maybe I've been the brawn
you're,
and
I
you're
don't know.
picking up the brains.
I think you're the brains, and I'm like the face. Like
Mhm, mhm.
I'm like the dumb but strangely charismatic one,
It's true, you're
maybe.
fun. You're fun. And
Yeah,
that's what matters.
I'm either the face or the wild card.
So so what is this? Where are we? Why are we here? Where do we go when we die? What
That's
are
a
we
great
doing here?
question, and I'm glad you asked. So, Killian, we've known each other for years,
So long.
and one of the things that we've always talked about was there's fashion podcasts, but there's no fashion podcast starring two, for lack of a better word, losers, two fashion
Very uncool.
outsiders.
Yeah.
Yeah, two very uncool people who are deeply concerned with fashion. And we are finally producing that. This is a fashion podcast for uncool people by uncool people. And I mean, I think there's going to be a lot of twists and turns in this one because it's not just going to be your run of the mill two cool guys talking about fashion. We've got a lot of outrageous, absurd, insane segments that we've prepared. And frankly, if you're watching episode 0, episode Goose Egg, this is our test run. This is like our dress rehearsal. We're really exploring this kind of medium with you.
And it's live, which is
Yes.
why the fact that this is brand new to us and we've never done it before, it's that much worse and has that much more potential for disaster, if I had to
Yeah.
say, you know?
Yeah. I think that was a big part of it for me. I wanted there to be like real disaster potential. I was like, doing a podcast sounds too easy. What if we made it live every Thursday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time? And obviously, if you're watching this right now, this one wasn't necessarily broadcast promoting it, but episode 1 we will be. Every other episode is going to be live. So, like, here's the takeaway: you want a fashion podcast starring two of your favorite YouTubers talking about all the crazy weird stuff in fashion, but it's live, so you can participate and make your horrible comments, but we see them in real time.
That's right. And I mean, we've got a bunch to talk about. In future episodes, people will be able to interact essentially. They'll be
Yeah.
included in the process. But for this one, episode 0, where there are no viewers or maybe some very weird rabbit hole viewers that found us God knows how.
Like
But
one of
today
those things that it's like there's like sites where you can find 0 view videos.
generate 0 view videos.
Yeah.
Exactly. So if any of you are out there, congratulations, you found us. But given that we're alone this time, we're going to be talking about a bunch of interesting stuff. We're going to maybe touch on hype sneakers. There's a new Gucci creative director. Maybe we'll talk about Essence layoffs in the industry, especially those online businesses. But
Yeah.
first, I want to talk about something more practical. Like what did we actually wear in the past week? Do you got anything interesting, anything worth talking about?
Me?
You.
Well, I guess I will start it off. Okay, so honestly, if you ask me, like ever since the pandemic, I've been, let's call it depression. I've my like outfits will be there. There is no like consistent outfitteering that I've done for a while. But I still occasionally try to get a fit off, and sometimes I don't even try. But last week, so it's been kind of like the weather's been really bizarre in New York. It was like 50 degrees. It was like 40s. It's the middle of January, yet it's vaguely spring weather. And I was rifling through my closet and I found this piece that I'll show you. right now.
Oh, I didn't know we were going to get interactive here. Kind of.
Yes,
Okay.
it's
Good.
And if you're only listening to this podcast, I just pulled out a leather perfecto style jacket. So I bought this jacket like years ago. Like I want to say like maybe 7 years ago. I bought it at a thrift store called Beacon's Closet in New York. It was only $30. Now, what immediately drew me to this jacket was it's like a calfskin. It's like supple. You know, sometimes you'll come across calfskin like perfecto jackets, like super stiff. It's for bikers, whatever. This one was obviously made with a soft-handed little guy like me in mind. The TLDR of it is I love leather jackets. I love leather in general. And this one I bought brand new. And the material of it, it's like way nicer than I would have expected. It's aging really nice. Like you can't really tell, but like the way that this leather and the collar is aging, I love this. This was such a tremendous jacket. And when I wear it, I look sick as hell. I only paid $30 for it, but you know, there's a shoe to drop, Killian. What do you think is what do you think the big secret is about this?
It's got to be some weirdo fit thing or something, right?
I mean, for everybody just listening,
I'm terrified.
He's
putting it on. We're waiting for the shoe to drop, the jacket to drop.
It fits great, you know.
It's
nice. You can't really tell maybe over the podcast, but I look sick as hell.
He looks good. I'll vouch for the listeners.
I'll tell you what the other shoe is.
Okay.
This jacket originally came from H&M. This is an H&M leather jacket, but it's nice as hell. I paid $30. Hold on, I'm like not even talking into the mic. I paid $30 for that jacket. Yeah. I've had it for years. It's starting to age very nicely. And leather jackets are the type of thing where if anybody asked me, I'd probably set this on my channel. You should spend good money on it because
absolutely.
Leather looks bad. And then like cheaper leather jackets are just gonna
like the pigment plastic coated stuff that a lot of them do. It starts to fall apart. Yeah.
Leather jackets are ultimately the type of thing where if you're going to buy one, you want to at least spend some money so that it is of nice quality. That I looked it up. I think at the time, just because I wanted to know, I think H&M sold it originally for like around $300, which is in itself very cheap for a calfskin leather jacket like that. Like a Shop Perfecto jacket is like $1,000 maybe.
It's crazy. It's crazy when you think about it, because you said the words $300 in H&M, and my mind exploded. Like those two things didn't compute. But when you really break it down, just materials alone, and then I don't know how much experience you have with construction, but just working with leather is an absolute nightmare. Like hellscape. Like I could grab something right now. I have these at the ready for when I need to do that. You know,
Killian's holding some kind of torture device. It looks like a little prong, like to stab leather.
Yeah, exactly. That's what to make holes in leather. It's the worst. So yeah, calfskin, $300. You're not wrong.
No, and I only paid $30 for it. And the reason is because the Beacon's Closet I went to is right across the street from Parsons School of Design. Now, if you're unfamiliar, that's a very fancy fashion school.
The Tim Gunn School.
It's
the Tim Gunn School.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Yes, I'm sure it is the Tim Gunn School. A lot of designers went there. Tom Ford, Alexander Wang, et cetera, et cetera.
Needless to say, Tim Gunn. I mean, you're bearing the lead, but okay.
Bearing the lead, I guess. Make it work, as he said. There's a big statue of him. It just reads "Make it work" in front of the school. Needless to say, everybody who goes there is a pretentious little boy or girl, and nobody touched that jacket. I picked it up. The TLDR of this story is, I love that thing. Sometimes you have to ignore the label and just like look at the garment itself, because I don't know, maybe it was a crazy day at the H&M headquarters, they just decided to produce something like that, where it's like it's very nice. I'm hoping to hold on to that, and I have a lot of
Yeah,
leather jackets I've had for years,
sure.
and it's still that one holds up with the rest of them.
No, I'm impressed. I mean, you fooled me, and I got to say on my end that I'm much more torn about my weekly wardrobe. You
Okay.
know, like if I were you, I would be similarly pleased with that piece and with wearing it. But for me, it was a divisive week inside my head because what actually happened is on two separate occasions, I wore two separate pieces by Aime Leon Dore. I know. I know, gasp. So here's the thing. I work in a corporate office environment,
Okay.
and there is, I mean, it's not a super strict one, but there is a dress code. You basically just have to look professional, whatever that means, right?
Who
And
knows?
the thing is, despite the fact that I uh, am not a huge fan of the clothes that ALD produces,
Hmm.
they are incredibly effective when you are trying to look sharp, yet also professional.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Does that
Um.
make sense?
Well, you know what? Because this is we're talking about a visual art form in a audio medium. Describe the pieces to me.
Sure. So I didn't know you were gonna pull it right out, but I do. 1 second here.
He's so unprepared. I'm really sorry, guys.
Thankfully, I have everything always at hand. All right.
Okay.
So here is a sort of like rugby polo type of shirt, right? With a
Mm-hmm.
little crest. It's kind of almost Christmassy colors, this red and green.
Yeah.
And then it's got like their big old logo print down the sleeve. So
Yeah.
it's that classic ALD kind of like prep school style, you know?
Yeah.
Thoughts?
That's piece number one. Thoughts? My immediate thoughts are, the rugby is a classic thing.
Mhm.
It's a classic thing. I think
Mhm.
that it looks good. I think that I haven't really owned one that I've loved
Yeah.
in a while, but I do have like an affinity for the preppy aesthetics, and I can talk more about ALD and kind of my feelings about them in a
So you know
moment.
what? That's interesting because let's dive down this rabbit hole a little bit. Maybe this will kind of um,
Okay.
get us going and thinking more about ALD and that whole aesthetic, right?
Okay.
Because there was this high snobiety post that I saw recently, and what they said. Let me bring this up here. They said, "Is Aime Leon Dore setting up to be the next Ralph Lauren?" It's That's a take if I've ever seen one, right?
That's clickbait. I mean
Sure.
I think it's a strong, rather strong statement, but and there's a whole paragraphs you're scrolling through, I guess, of them kind of either
They're making
arguing
their
or
argument.
proposing that it is. So,
Sure.
and the post itself is you've got like a dude who kind of has like a Ralph Lauren look. He's got like a dinner jacket sort of thing. He's got a tie, like a Oxford button cotton thing. He's wearing some kind of slacks, but he has sneakers on, and he's holding a basketball, and that's how you know it's ALD
Sure.
because
And yeah, it's kind of streetwearified, right? It's
yeah,
Ralph
a little bit.
Lauren, but streetwearified. But
Um,
here's the question. Is there any argument to be made? Like what could the argument be that
well,
would even begin to steelman their view that ALD and Ralph Lauren are in any way comparable?
I have a lot of things to think, and actually, ALD. I think one of the first videos I ever made on YouTube was about one of their items. But like to put them into context, they are a quasi streetwear, kind of more preppy, more like vintage or nostalgic brand from New York. And if you ever like walk around Nolita in the city, they have a new location, and it's for one, it's always popping. It's always like there's
Yeah.
lines outside of it frequently. And I think it's because in part because it's like they did like a beautiful white kind of white stone, very French looking aesthetic. They've got like the retail store, and they have a cafe connected to it. It's in a perfect location. But the vibe of ALD is like it's almost kind of like a Instagram aesthetic page come to life. Imagine this Instagram page has like vintage like
Sure.
Jaguars, and like has pictures of like Michael Jordan from the 90s, and then it's like like taking preppy looks and making it streetwear. And I think the at least the connecting tissue that Heisenbeide was thinking of was that for years Ralph Lauren, despite positioning itself kind of really firmly as like this iconic preppy like Americana fantasy brand, a
Yeah.
lot of its most adamant fans, low heads, were invested in like the Ralph Lauren sport and the pieces that were in essence more streetwear ready, and that
Right,
has
because
like its own aesthetic.
the way that you laid it out, you actually made the argument pretty well on an extremely surface level for the comparison, talking about the preppy elements and the kind of, I mean, it's American brand, New York brand, right? All of these
Mm-hmm.
things. You're setting it up well. So I guess what's missing is like the depth, the heritage, maybe the kind of cachet almost. I'm not sure, but what you're saying definitely rings true to me because ALD, what they have is it's like style. There's I've
Mm-hmm.
been playing with this thing in my head lately, which is the difference between fashion and style,
Go on.
right? And you've got fashion on one side, which I'm always thinking is like forward thinking, forward looking, or at the very least of the now in a way.
In
Whereas
Vogue.
in vogue, exactly the kind of classical sense of fashion, right?
Yeah.
And style almost exists outside of that and is just about um, looking good for yourself, finding what works
Mm-hmm.
on yourself, finding like your uniform, which I think uniforms have a very clear connection to fashion, but almost kind of exist outside of them.
Yeah.
So you see all these Instagram accounts and things like that, who I think are engaging in style as opposed to fashion, but they get kind of equated in one big lump by people, understandably.
Yeah, I think that's fair. You know, just the fact that you said that, I have a very vivid memory. I grew up in the ass crack of nowhere in America, and the like first real fashion designer like brand or store, and the first time I was like in relationship to a fashion brand, like a
Hmm.
real one, was Polo Ralph Lauren. And I
Yes.
remember thinking vividly as a
Yep.
kid going in there and like looking at the clothes or whatever and realizing or thinking to myself like they don't cut things the way everyone else is. They're not doing skinny jeans. They're not cutting anything of what is in trend. And it was the first time
Hmm.
that I realized Ralph Lauren is a great example of a brand that is sticking to its aesthetic, to its style, to the
Yeah.
kind of like key like elements that they are think is important. And they will only skew slightly towards like a fashion bend, but they are committed to their own style and aesthetic. And,
And I,
and
I think we grew up in a similar era. And I remember the exact same thing. I went to like a prep school for all intents and purposes early on for my early years of schooling, and a lot of polo things like that. And then it morphed to American Eagle and Hollister and things
sure.
like that. And those brands, they were chasing something
Yeah.
that Ralph Ralph Lauren felt like it never was. You know what I
No.
mean?
100%. It never was. That's exactly it. It wasn't positioned to, and it had no need to. And it was a more or less, it was a real brand. It wasn't one where they're just like, whatever is the thing that kids want, that's how we're going to cut our clothes now. And just like the ALD kind of Ralph Lauren comparisons,
Yeah.
we have to like at least point out that like Ralph Lauren, like in the 70s, when in the 80s, when they were really taking off, he had he had a vision of a lifestyle brand. He had a
Yeah.
vision of this fantasy that the brand was going to take on. And you can find a million interviews of Ralph Lauren saying like when he was designing the clothes, when he was coming up with these things, he's imagining these characters, and he wanted his clothing to like embody that fantasy. Like if you put this shirt on and this tie, you're the power broker, or you're the boss, or you're the guy on a yacht. And that kind of that commitment to really creating this lifestyle fantasy, I think, is what always set it over the top. It's not just clothes.
Yeah, and that's important to bring up and kind of keep in focus, because I think it sometimes gets lost where they went licensing crazy, like a lot of other brands of the era, Tommy Hilfiger, things like that. So I think a lot of people can see Ralph Lauren, they think of like the underwear or the cologne, the, I don't know, phone chargers, whatever that they see at Marshall's or something.
Sure.
But there's this kind of base underneath it all of like Ralph Lauren's out there doing runway shows. You know what I mean?
Yeah. There's definitely
very interesting dichotomy.
I mean, maybe this is a topic for another episode. I think it's worth talking about the like American brands, American fashion brands, including the high fashion ones, how they almost are obligated to become so many diffusion lines. And that's why I think Ralph Simmons got kicked out of the Calvin Klein job. But I don't want to get down a rabbit hole. That's a teaser for everyone.
You got to get there, because you can follow that all the way back to like Halston and his diffusion line and things like that. Yeah, we'll go crazy with that at some point. But let's finish this subject up, bring it back to the beginning. ALD. I guess the final question on this is there any hope? Is there a pathway? We obviously agree they're not there yet. They're nowhere near Ralph Lauren status. Is there a pathway?
I think that they need to like conjure, I guess, and ultimately they need to have the same concrete kind of idea of what the fantasy or the lifestyle brand is, what the brand is existing as. Because as somebody who's been familiar with them since like their advent, since they began, like my initial thought is it kind of feels a lot like an Instagram mood board to me. But I don't know that like clear projection of ALD represents this people of this zone, and by putting on these clothes, you are embodying this kind of quality. At least for me, the fact that I don't firmly know that makes me think they are not at Ralph Lauren level yet.
And some of those things come with time, honestly. It's like what has staying power, what transcends that Instagram mood board of the moment, right?
Straight up.
So I got a question for you.
Okay.
Do you want to talk about hype sneakers, or do you want to talk about the Gucci creative director stuff?
Well, this would be a great moment for us to turn to the audience. See, this is why you guys gotta be here when we're live.
You gotta be here.
Player's choice. You pick.
Oh boy. Okay.
What are you feeling?
Let's talk. I want to talk about hype sneakers for a second.
Okay.
Because I think I have a few more thoughts on this. Maybe we can save Gucci for another time. Maybe once we see some stuff from that new creative director, because of course that'll be coming down the pike very soon, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So I saw there were these new Junya Watanabe. Is that right? Sometimes
Junya Watanabe on my
never
wrist.
say things out loud enough. You know what I mean?
Junya Watanabe is correct.
Yes, great. New Balance.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, a new collaborative sneaker, and these, they're New Balances.
Mm-hmm. So you're pulling these pics. This is on Sneaker News, but it was from the Junya Watanabe runway show for men's fall winter 2023. And we're going through it, and we see some looks that are quasi like Junya Watanabe, what you expect, a lot more monochromatic than we usually see from this designer. But the kicks themselves are, I'm not even sure if I recognize this model. It's
a 650, I believe, which is also not one I'm super familiar with.
But it's like all black. It's like blackout, like black sole, black. All of it is black.
Yeah, it almost looks like a mix between an Air Force One and like a Jordan 4, something like that, like a hybrid between
Yeah.
those, I would say.
Yeah.
And
Um, eh,
it's just very middle of the road for me. Like it just looks like any other mainstream mass market sneaker that I could possibly think of. Do you disagree?
I do not. I mean, it does. Those they do have like big pick these up at Marshall vibes.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And
and I mean, Killian, why is this giving you trouble? Why is it giving
oh
you?
man. Okay. So it gets me thinking about a lot of things. It gets me thinking about what is the purpose of these hype luxury X mainstream sneaker brand collaborations, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
what inevitably happens is they release for, I don't know, maybe 50 to 100% over what a normal Nike, Adidas, New Balance would cost. So
Mm-hmm.
like overpriced, but reasonable overpriced. And then if all things go well, they sell out and hit StockX and go and everything else, and they are inflated like crazy, and they
And the
become
rich get
these.
richer.
The rich get richer. They become investment vehicles,
Yeah.
and they start being treated more like NFTs or like a crypto shitcoin than
Mm-hmm.
a wearable piece of shoes, despite the fact that they are mass market sneakers at the end of the day that are made in sweatshops, for lack of a better word, out of most likely lackluster materials. Have I
Well, you
said
know what?
anything that upsets you or that you disagree with here?
I'll begin with this.
Hmm.
A lot of New Balances are made right in both of our home of New England. I don't know if these were, but you know, honestly, I kind of see what you're getting at. We're looking at this collection from Junior Watanabe. Why did he have to do this collab with New Balance? The
Hmm.
sneakers look boring as hell. It kind of and we're not sneakerheads, but you know,
No.
I know shoes, and this kind of looks like it was almost like they had agreed to something without having a creative vision idea in mind, and then
Yeah.
it was just like, I don't know, New Balance, do you have any boring ass sneakers I can put on the bottom of
Yeah.
these looks?
Just flip through
Um,
the archive of all the failed silhouettes that they've had in the past and just point to one, just blindfolded, right?
Yeah, and like the one thing that's I'm thinking of is thinking of Junior's mentor, Ray Kawakubo,
Hmm.
and like a lot of Comme des Garçons. Like a couple of years ago, there were some really interesting Comme des Garçons times Nike,
Very
um,
interesting. Yeah.
like I don't know, collections that
Mhm.
with the runway and then alone just has a sneaker. They were bizarre, they were interesting. There was the
Mhm.
one, it was like a Jordan 1 that was like made out of like see-through um polyurethane like plastic, which immediately makes me think of a handful of like Comme des Garçons pieces that were like that, and it's iconically Nike. The TLDR is Comme des Garçons, which is basically the mother of Junior Watanabe. Uh, they've done sneaker collabs where it hit better. It hit harder, at least.
Yeah.
They were cool sneakers. They worked. It made sense with the whole collection. And like Killian's just pulling up a bunch of like different kind of CDG Nikes, and there's a lot of
Yeah, the
examples where,
foam posits, Air
yeah,
Max, the Jordans you referenced. It's a really interesting archive, actually.
and it's strange to see, you know, for anybody who's unfamiliar, Junior Watanabe was a designer at Comme des Garçons, and I forget like the narrative. So let's just say Ray Kawakubo saw his talent and said, "Yo, you should make your own brand." So he's like a prodigy of that label. But we're seeing at least this recent collection. It's just like it looks like it's asleep at the wheel. The whole New Balance and Watanabe collab. I guess Killian, to kind of give you a straight answer.
Yes.
Yes, I do believe. I don't know. I kind of do look at these and say, is this just more fodder for the sneaker market? Is this just like somebody agreed to something? They're going to do it anyway so that
Yeah.
Sneaker News can publish the article and that StockX can have the sneakers and that some rich son of a bitch is gonna like have them and never wear them.
Right, we were talking about style versus fashion. There's also product versus fashion, right? And
Yeah.
these at least definitely feel like just coals for the fire of product churn, essentially, right? And
Yeah.
I mean, at this point when I'm buying footwear for the most part, I'm probably buying luxury in all honesty.
Mm.
Um, and I mean, on my own channel, you get the odd person here and there that comes in and says, "You are an idiot." And I understand why they feel that way, right? They can go on Google and look up the price of these sneakers and boots and whatever the case may be. They know the exorbitant retail prices of these things. Um,
Yeah.
but they are not for the most part, being used as investment vehicles, right? People, they may like the brand name or they may appreciate the materials or the fact that ideally in that labor chain, people are being treated more fairly than they would if they bought Nikes. At least that's my hope, and that's why I
That's
buy
the
them instead of the
fantasy.
mass market stuff, right? That is the fantasy. And it makes me wonder which is the more ethical way to go.
I mean,
Tell
I
you
don't
tell
know.
me. You have the answer, right?
I do. I have had it for a long time.
Mhm.
And the answer is something like this. Back in the day, when men used to be men and women
Uh-huh.
wouldn't have a job. But like earlier in the 20th century, prior to us having all this material wealth, like people look back at clothes and like, clothes used to be better then. Look how much better they were made. They were also much more expensive. And people would spend
Yeah.
much more of like their overall salary on having a few, like 3 suits, and that's it. So that's a big part of it, I think, is like if you want to be the most sustainable, you should be willing to spend a lot more than you're used to on clothing because we are accustomed to spending pennies compared to what people used to spend on clothing. So ultimately, the most sustainable option is going to be you being very selective and probably like buying from luxury brands because those often will be the best uh, built or made. And obviously, there's a lot to go into it, but
And I mean,
I
I of course, everyone's gonna call us hypocrites, essentially, right? And they're fair to because
I don't
we
think so.
make compromises every day. We're the cobalt that's in all these devices that we're using right
I
now as
love
we
it.
speak, yada yada yada. But you have to you have to make the compromises that you're going to make, right? Even when it comes down to clothing, like it was made much better back
Back
in
in
the
the
day,
day,
but the material science was also completely different. Now people are making like tech fabrications out of various blends that never would have been possible before, and there's a ethical price to be paid for those sweet fabrics, right?
hmm I mean, there's, but I think people have a lot of ideas about like what is good or bad in fashion twisted. Like
Mhm.
you think of brands like or textiles like Lysel or Lyocell,
Yeah,
Buy Tencel, who is the sponsor of the pod.
of
They are
course.
not. But like I think people will like look at stuff like that. They'll touch that and they'll be like, "It's stretchy. It's plastic. This is garbage, and it's bad for the environment." And it's like Tencel. The way they do that is they grow big ash trees, and then they actually get the most like material possible from their like I don't know their stock like physic things. So like they are draining these trees for everything they're worth, and they're getting a lot of material for a lot less like water usage and energy usage and like land usage compared to something like cotton, which is very water hungry and it takes a lot of land to grow. The long story short of it is these future materials that people are making right now, I think a lot of people think of them and they touch them and their immediate thoughts are this is H&M, this is cheap,
Yeah,
this is it used to be better when it was all cotton. The reality is that if there is any hope for humanity, we'll be using materials like that a lot more. And like materials like cotton will I this is like a hot take, but it's something I truly believe. Cotton
hit
will
me.
become a luxury textile. It will become the
Ooh,
type of thing that
mm.
because it is just so expensive on like a
It's
ecological
absurd.
scale
Yeah, yeah.
that I think that cotton is going to become more and more luxury. And if you want to wear a cotton t-shirt, it's going to be a fancy thing that you own and you paid more money for it.
And then it's going to be like a single stitch t-shirt, cotton t-shirt. It's going to be in vintage shops being marked up like crazy.
Yeah,
especially if it has a cool Spencer's Gifts graphic on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And they're like, look, they only used one stitch this time, even though 2 stitches seem like it would be better, but they
seems like it would be better, right?
And that's why all my t-shirts are single stitch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I think it's time that we bring some guests on, because we do have some esteemed guests here with us today.
Yes.
And we got to get to them. They've been waiting for a while, right?
300%. That's right.
So,
we sorry.
Oh, you're good. So what's happening is there are all these products coming out all the time, right? And not all of them are going to be hits.
That's inevitable. Yeah.
It's inevitable. Some of them they're gonna miss. They're gonna be subpar, substandard, below our extremely high standards.
Correct.
But we're very respected in this industry, right? Silence. I'm sure you're just figuring out a way to say yes, but
yes.
So we're able to get these people on from these companies, and there were a couple products that were announced in the past week or so that we have some defenders here from these companies. And the first guest here is actually, they are from Birkenstock, because there was the Fear of God X Birkenstock Los Feliz slide that came out. So, Christian, who are we welcoming here today from Birkenstock?
I'm glad you asked, Killian. Can I get everybody listening to the pod? Can you all give a warm welcome, a round of applause for Jerry Lorenzo himself, a Fear of God, who is going to pitch the new Birkenstocks times Fear of God collection.
Here he is. Here he comes. Here he comes. Hello. Welcome. Welcome. Welcome to the pod.
Thank you.
So we don't have all the time in the world. I do really appreciate you coming here.
That's a very rude way to start this, with me taking the time to sit through 40 minutes of you guys talking about nonsense.
Yeah. I'm not super socially well adjusted, and I apologize.
Okay. Let me get to my pitch. My pitch.
Please tell me, because you got this new product. So I definitely want to give you a few minutes to tell me why this is so exciting for your company.
Lightning bolt. Imagine, if you will, the fear of God. That's like old biblical stuff. That's like the kind of thing where you're in a big field in the summer and it's a lightning storm and you're just afraid because you're so small and God is so big and he'll strike you down. What if you could combine that fear with a mid 2010s kind of like Dark Shadow ripoff kind of thing, with the comfort and the security that you know and love from Birkenstocks? I introduce to you the Birkenstocks times Fear of God collaboration. And the reason I'm here is to explain to you why such a collaboration is a necessity, and why it makes sense for both of our brands, and why it's important. And I'm not just reading from the product page, but Birkenstocks and Fear of God are proud to present Los Feliz, a new footwear proposition. Not even product, not even shoe. It's a proposition designed by Fear of God and developed exclusively with Birkenstocks 1774, which is, that a brand has an upscale shoot off if it's the name and then like a date.
That's what is the 1974?
1774 was the year that Wilhelm Birkenstock crossed over the Alps barefoot, and he realized that if he walked on cork, it would have been better. And that's when he invented Birkenstocks, and that's why we celebrate that year. Apparently, if I keep reading the sentence, it's the German heritage brand's special projects and collaboration unit, which is what I'm a member of.
That perfectly explains why that year is the one they went with. Yeah.
Yep. I mean, to give you guys some of an idea, if you're wondering what these Birkenstocks times Fear of God look like, it's very the color concrete. It's very like it's very of the aesthetic of what Fear of God is right now. It's like warm woods, wool blankets, and like these Birkenstocks. And to describe them to you, imagine like typical Birkenstock bed. It's like, the rubber outsole, it's the cork, and then the upper is gray suede, and it just kind of looks like it velcros over the side. Now, and if you were a betting man, which I am not, I would say these are probably retailing for like $500 or something like that. Why would you spend that much money on a pair of Birkenstocks that only look marginally different?
Mhm.
Because it says Fear of God on it. That's why. Any questions?
So I know that you're super behind the scenes. You're working real hard. You're not paying attention to these things. They're $355 at retail, so they're an even better deal actually
That is a
than
remarkable
even
deal.
what you thought. So that's, I
Yes.
mean, impressive in its own way. But my question, I really only have one question, and it's,
Mhm.
why did there need to be a Fear of God Birkenstock?
Well,
Like,
see, there was
you could have made a slide. I think you've already made clogs, if I remember correctly. You're already doing these sorts of things, the mules. Uh, you could have just lopped off the toe of your mule uh, and done it on your own, I would assume.
let me read or say something to you that's off the top of my head. The result is a sandal inspired by the unique hillside enclaves of its Los Angeles neighborhood namesake and built with the easy, elevated fluidity that defines Fear of God's design language, yet retains the purity and beauty of Birkenstock's iconic silhouettes. So, I mean, I think you kind of you've got egg on your face. You are stupid for asking me that. There was only one way to combine the elevated fluidity of Fear of God's design language and the iconic purity and beauty of Birkenstocks. We had to combine these two things. There was no other way. And for people listening, I mean, you might look at these Birkenstocks and think those are only vaguely different than another Birkenstock that I would buy, yet they're like $200 more. It's the fantasy, baby. It's always
Yeah,
about
I
the
mean,
fantasy.
I will say I stand corrected.
Okay.
I've been really embarrassed
Yeah,
here by what you've just said to me. Um, it took a strong masculine man to really put me in my place and make me realize the error of my ways. So, I mean,
I appreciate you saying that.
I guess in the grand scheme of things, the most I can say, and this is, I think, being generous on my side, is that I've seen much worse, and I've been much more offended by collaborative products. So I think, I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt here.
I would say buy it. I would say buy it. And now there have been people since Fear of God started. People have been comparing us to Rick Owens. I don't know
Mhm.
why. Maybe because
Great
obviously
question.
Jerry Lorenzo's original designs looked deeply inspired by Rick Owens' designs of the time. And people might point out that Rick Owens did his own Birkenstocks collection. Um, but you're not jumping up down their throat. So what's the deal?
So I think the difference there is, I mean, do you have Google available to you? Would you be able to Google Rick
Uh-huh.
Owens
I'll Google it.
Birkenstock? I
Rick
mean,
Owens.
uh, I would I would say just a cursory glance at those
Mm-hmm.
would show a vast gulf of difference between that and a normal Birkenstock compared to the Fear of God Los Feliz and your average Birkenstock. Does
I
that make
don't
sense?
know.
It's harkening back to the era of the gladiators, the Russell Crowes of the world, you know?
Yeah, it's really harkening back to a Russell Crowe kind of situation. I
Correct.
was thinking of being a pitch man myself, I was thinking of ending this by saying, "Are you not entertained?" Um,
Oh,
yeah. I don't know. I mean, you know what? This is Christian talking. Robert
welcome
took
back,
Fear of
Christian.
God's head down. I don't know. Maybe I gave Rick Owens the pass on these just because it's like hilarious. Do whatever you want. But
Yeah.
these just look like regular ass Birkenstocks.
You think now I need to do the Google. I'll bring them up for the crew here, because I'm thinking of the unless I'm
This
misremembering.
I mean, there's
Uh,
the ones with like the silver and the black. Those are different. Those are definitely different. And then there's these like oil slick ones that are kind of cool. But like my immediate thought was like you have the black fur ones, and I'm like, that is obviously very Rick because it's
yes,
like, ooh, it's like horny, but it's also like it's just fur on a Birkenstock.
that's fair. Like if you look over here at the Arizonas, they're actually very similar to the Fear of Gods.
Yeah, you could have fooled me if somebody was so deeply. This is like the classic. Where'd you get your Converse from? Where'd you get your Birkenstocks from? And you deserve for people to call them Birkenstocks. They're not Rick Owens.
True.
Sorry, buddy. No, I mean they're fine, and
Yeah,
I think that I don't know. Ultimately, sometimes designers just need a friggin' shoe for the rest of the look, and it might as well be New Balance or Birkenstocks.
that's fair.
So I
I
guess
will say, I mean, talking about these collabs with kind of mass market brands, Birkenstocks are legitimately pretty interesting, I would
yeah,
say, and have some sort of intrinsic value and history to them and a unique kind of place in the market. So,
yeah.
as far as those things go, I think I'm generally less offended to see those collabs than I am some others.
I mean I guess I agree with you because like
Yeah,
if somebody said it's a cork sole slipper or sandal, there is no other brand I can like conjure. If they were like,
right.
no, it's Guggenhagen's, I'd be like, who? What the hell are you talking about? Get out of here. There is only one Birkenstock.
There can only be one. I took it from you.
Killian, I don't know. I mean, I'm like stoked that we had that Fear of God guy wait all this
Yeah.
time to speak to us, but didn't we like force another person to wait in
We
the green
did.
room?
We did. Let me go allow him in, admit him
Hmm.
into the room here. Hey, hello.
Hey, hi.
Uh I'm
Pleasure to meet you,
David. Yeah,
David.
I'm David. I'm head of collaborations for UGGs, actually.
Oh, mucho gusto. It's a pleasure to meet you, David.
You as well. And I want to tell you
Uh
about
huh.
this new collaboration that we've got going. I don't know if you've seen it. It's the Palace Uggs.
Whoa!
Mind
These
blown, right?
these Uggs are crazy.
They're
Imagine. I'm sorry, David. Maybe you should describe them.
happy to. So basically, what you've got are some Uggs, right? And Uggs, they are historically, I mean, in the Northeast where you're from, Christian, they're really the domain of the pumpkin spice types, I
Oh
would
yeah.
say, and we recognize that.
Yes.
Off in the West Coast, they've been adopted by a kind of surfer sort of crowd, warm up after some waves,
Yeah.
but there's a clear clientele missing, I would say. And I think really what we're doing by teaming up with Palace is you have the boot type shape and color of a New York favorite, which is the Timberland.
Dead ass.
But Uggs, they never really caught on with that crowd. But once you add some lightning bolts on top, and you add the big, bold
Big.
branded name of a streetwear mainstay like Palace, and suddenly I think you're opening up whole new worlds for this rough and tumble streetwear crowd to really
Adopt.
ride the lightning and feel the comfort that Uggs have to offer.
David,
Uh,
that was so iconic that you said that.
Thank you.
And for our listeners back home, you should imagine your iconic UGG boot. It's like the what mid calf kind of thing,
Yeah.
in chestnut, that boot, but then add like Microsoft Word graphics lightning all over,
Yep.
and like a big ass palace on the back. And
Yep. And
David, I want to.
actually, in the like rubber of the sole, it says Uggs and it says Palace.
Uh huh.
So
So people will see it when they look at like the footprint in the snow.
right.
Um, I want to let you finish pitching it, but I
Oh,
honestly I
I'm
look at
done. I
these.
think I made my
Okay,
case. I think it was pretty brilliant.
it was Brill. It was Brill. I loved it when you said ride the lightning. Um,
Mhm.
I think these are sick. They're just like so outrageous. They are
So actually,
so
David, he just got up. He was holding a microphone and he dropped it and he left. So he's gone because clearly
okay.
he thought
Good.
he made his case. So this is killing here now. Sorry, continue.
I mean they are just hilarious. And it just I mean to give you guys like some real talk, I'm a New Yorker, dead ass.
Mhm.
I wear my girlfriend's Uggs to go to the bodega all the time, and I love them. I love
Mhm.
those boots. Because it's like they're like hilarious. They're warm. They're practical in the sense that like that's a shoe I can wear in the winter without putting socks on. And you
Right.
throw the hilarious lightning bolts on it and the palace. I'm sold. I'll buy that.
So do you think they could like? Is there like a beautiful irony here? Or is it going to be completely lost? Is there going to be the clientele that we expect to buy it, they buy it, and then it's just a laughing stock otherwise? Or is there a niche here that it actually has a believable ability to find of just people recognizing the sheer audacity of these?
Well, I think that this is something I've thought about for like Palace and Supreme for a long time.
Mhm.
I think that people don't have often not given them credit for designing things deliberately ugly, like
Mm,
things that are like almost like postmodern or ironic. There are a lot of designs that they've made, like Palace and Supreme, where it's like that's hideous and it's
yeah.
funny and it's like go for it. But I kind of agree that I think that a lot of the people obsessed with those brands, or at least in the past, have not had the level of sophistication or maybe awareness where they look at this and realize, oh, this is like a meme. You know, this is like
Right.
it's not like just dressing ironically, but it's more or less like having fun. And
Yeah.
I mean, like if they were on my feet, I would be bringing those things to life. I would be bringing to life the hilarity of those two designs. I'm sure there are some like some blokes, some rude
Mhm.
boys, some
Mhm.
whatever, something British. I'm sure they exist in the like on the mean streets of London, wearing these Palace boots the way they're supposed to, as Palace is a London brand.
True. I hope so. I hope
I hope
so.
so.
I actually have to say this kind of went backwards from the way we intended because the idea was that the representative from the companies would sell the other person on these subpar products, but you actually sold me. I wasn't giving these the time of day, but I've come around.
Yeah,
I've come around.
I mean, I think of an iconic picture. There is this picture of Lou Reed
Mhm.
from like honestly maybe 2 or 3 years before he died, and he's like on the streets of New York, like waving at like the paparazzi or whatever. And I think technically he's wearing a Rick boot that Rick made at some point, but it
Mhm.
looks like Uggs. And I think it was like Rick doing Uggs. And you could fact check me on this, but I've always thought about that shot. Like, yeah. So I think yeah, well, it's something about Rick Owens. Maybe he's wearing Rick on top. Well, the
This is
jacket's Rick.
yeah, that looks like a Rick like mountain type of
Yeah,
jacket thing. Yeah.
we're looking at Lou Reed on the mean streets of New York,
Yeah.
taking a walk on the wild side. And maybe those are just regular ass Uggs, and I've just always misremembered this.
I
But
think they might be. I mean,
there's
we
some,
could be totally wrong, but they look very UGG-like.
there's something about seeing him in those and being like just living his best life. Where from that point on, I've been like, okay, so Uggs are actually cool because
Because
they're
I mean
comfy as
Lou
hell.
Reed, yeah, fair,
Yeah.
fair. So you know what? The time
What?
flies, but
Time flies when you're having fun.
it was fun. And it's
I think
suddenly
so.
almost 9 o'clock. And this is where normally we would be going back and forth with our devoted audience, right?
Hmm. That's
Who will
correct.
be
Every
here in the
Thursday
future.
they will
But
be.
speaking of the future, since they're not here this time, what's there to say? Where are we going with this thing?
Well, friends, I would say this. You can expect the type of irreverence, the hilarity, and the real hot fashion takes that nobody else on earth is humanly capable of providing on the bias cut every week. And Killian, I think that the live element where like my cat could run in here, my girlfriend could run in here, my landlord could come in here. He's come into my apartment. It went
They're
past.
not supposed to do
So
that without 24 hours notice, Christian.
I know, but it's
You
no rules.
know, one of these,
Um,
right?
my point is this. I think that if you're a real fashion human being, if you're one of the real ones, I think you're going to want to log into YouTube, look for the bias cut, and subscribe and hit the bell notification, and probably take off work every Thursday to tune in to the live episodes because we were going to do segments. We're going to do segments about fashion. We're going to talk about things, or we're going to will blow your mind. We're reinventing the podcast.
We really are. Yeah, if you do happen to be working at 8 p.m. Eastern on a Thursday, you take
Uh-huh.
work off. Um, if you happen
Yes.
to be off work, you just punch your boss that day to
Mm.
make sure that you don't even get any texts or Teams messages
Oof.
calling you in. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm telling you. Can I just make one comment? When
Please.
I go to hell,
Mhm.
every second is going to be the sound of like the Outlook notification, like a new
Oh
email,
God.
and like Slack notifications. Like I'll just be playing that to me in hell, and I'll just like be tortured for the rest of my life.
Can I ask you an
But
honest and a really honest, like deep meta question right now?
yes.
Did you ever record videos, while you were supposed to be working from home, and then that little chime would go off while you're
uh,
supposed to be working, and you would have to edit it out of your takes?
I'm trying to think if that ever happened because I definitely, and don't listen to this if you're a past employer. I definitely waste most of my time.
Mhm.
So I'm trying to think if it's like I think at least in my last job I was so like emotionally distraught that I was just like not making any content
Mhm.
anyway. But that seems like an iconic thing that would happen to me. Maybe there is some footage where I have where it goes like makes that sound.
Yeah,
I
if my employer ever sees this, that was just a completely random question. I don't know why
Yeah,
I
that's
thought
a
of that.
JK. Okay.
Yeah. So, 9 o'clock on the dot, Christian. Where can people find you?
They can find me right here on the bias cut and nowhere else. But if you insist,
I do.
check out the Brave New Wear Show on YouTube. That's basically one word. I don't know, but it's Brave New Wear. That's where you can find me on YouTube. That's my main channel. And also check me out on Instagram whenever I'm there. It's at Christian, my first name, underscore my last name Shibetta, Cibetta. That's at Christian Shibetta.
They can dox you if you already put it out there, you know?
That's
You just
right, and
get ahead of it.
that's why I do it every day. I'm always doxing myself.
Yeah. Uh, and I'm Low Luxury, all one word, on YouTube. You can find me there, and then there's other links to my Instagram and whatnot if you wanna find me. I think that's all we got. Is that all we got?
That is, and everybody listening and watching, I love you. Thank you so much for joining us on episode 0. This is a pilot episode. This is like that episode of Star Trek that they never released where like not Captain Kirk, Captain Kirk wasn't even there, and like like this is that. Like people will come back to this and go like, who the hell was that Christian guy? He's not in any of the other episodes of the entire podcast.
Yeah, it's like the lost demo tape where they
Yeah.
had the different singer.
Where's Gerard?
Where's Gerard?
The host that we know and love.
All right, well, with that, we'll figure out who's replacing Christian for next time. But in the meantime, yeah, thanks everybody, and we'll see you next Thursday.
Peace.
Peace.